In this lesson, we'll learn about the principle of staging. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we have a little animation that I want to play for you. So go ahead and click play. So it's a little lizard character. He gets startled. He takes off running, looks back briefly, and then smacks into this tree. This was a project that I created for a course in our library about traditional animation techniques in Toon Boom Harmony. We basically take a traditional approach where I show you how I draw all of the extremes and the breakdowns and the in-betweens for this character to create this animation. And so if you look at this scene, there's actually quite a bit to absorb for the viewer's eye. You see our character, the entire background, this tree, even the foreground shrubbery right there. And so the viewer kind of sees everything all at once. This is where staging comes in, to where we can kind of direct their attention and thus kind of tell this story differently and hopefully a lot more effectively. So the whole idea of staging, it really goes back to live theater. And the whole concept of it is basically being able to present an idea to the audience so that it's very clear. Okay? We want to be able to tell them, look over here, now look over here, and then now look over here. And it all revolves around story. The story point is what you really want to always consider. So what I would like to do is use a camera here in Toon Boom to maybe focus in on the character, and then as he gets startled, have the camera pan across and then reveal the tree so that it's a surprise to us, much as it is to our little character right there. Okay, so this tree is going to be kind of a surprise to the viewer. So let's go ahead and come down here to the layers section of our timeline view. Click on that plus and go ahead and choose the camera right there. Adds our camera. Now we want the ability to move this camera. We can't move it unless we have a peg. So with the camera selected, click on this little button right here. And now we have a peg attached to our camera. All right. So we want to be able to move this camera peg. So we're going to use our translate tool, and we're also going to use our scale tool up here in our advanced animation toolbar. If you do not see this toolbar, I kind of mentioned this in a few other lessons, come over here to Windows, Toolbars, checkmark Advanced Animation. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go ahead and make sure I've got my Animate button turned on so we can set keyframes. With our camera peg selected, I'm going to choose this Scale button right here. And we're going to go ahead and basically scale this camera to where we're kind of zoomed in. I'm going to take my translate tool now. I'm going to move it over. And I might want to scale it up a little bit more. Maybe right about there. And I want to keep the camera confined to the scene. I don't want it off like that, because when we do a preview of it, you're going to see black over there. It'll just look weird. Okay? Something kind of like that. You want to leave a little bit of room at the top of the character's head so that it doesn't kind of create a visual tangent. Okay, so we've got our keyframe set right there. I'm just going to go ahead and jump to the end of our scene here, and I'm going to take that right arrow and just drag that camera across right there. And of course it creates that interpolation in between. Now we're not done yet, because if we click play, the camera moves in a very linear fashion, and it's not keeping up with our character. We actually need to hold for just a little while, because you can see he gets startled. He hasn't taken off running yet, and he kind of does a little bit of a wind up, and then he takes off running. So we don't want to miss all that if the camera is moving ahead. So I'm just scrubbing through here, trying to find a good point where I'd kind of want to hold this camera. Probably around frame 22, because it's after that he takes off running. So I'm just going to take that first keyframe, copy it, come over here to frame 22, paste it in. We can start to play and kind of see how that's looking. Now, we're getting closer, especially as I scrub through. However, kind of towards the end there, he hits that tree and we miss a lot of it right there, okay, with our camera. So what I might do is I might take that keyframe there at the end, and now I'll go ahead and kind of start to rein that in. So the camera will get there just a little bit quicker, giving us enough time to say, oh no, there's a tree, he's probably going to hit that, rather than him hitting it and us seeing it all at once. You know, we want to give the viewer just a little bit of a beat to kind of have just a little bit of an alert there. Oh, there's a tree, he's going to hit that. It becomes a surprise to us, just a beat before it becomes a surprise to him. And I think that will resonate better with an audience than having the camera show up a little bit later and it all happen at once for both the character and us. So hopefully that makes sense. So right about there, I think will work fine. I'll kind of click play and see how that looks. All right, very nice. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of do a preview. I'm going to click on this button up here, and it'll take a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll come back, and then we can watch it the way we really intend to see it now. All right, so let's go ahead and click play. See how this looks. All right, pretty cool. So now we're telling this story. We're telling this whole scene that's unfolding. We're telling it in a different way than what we saw initially, right? Okay, so we start off by seeing the character in its entirety there. So we kind of establish the character. We see what happens. We give the camera enough time to kind of hold. And then we follow along, and we see that tree just a quick beat right before he smacks into it. And again, it kind of comes back to, we don't want to see the action, everything all at once. We don't want that to be the big reveal all at once to us. And we also don't want to miss it. So that's where we kind of adjusted our camera there. So we see that tree just right before he hits it. And I think that's important. I think it's an important part of telling the story. You don't want it to happen, again, all at once, okay? So just playing this a few more times, you can start to analyze it, break it down, and figure out if there's anything else you really want to tweak. But this is just a simple example. Again, the whole thing with staging is really kind of directing the viewer's attention, saying, look over here, now look here, now look here, okay? And so depending on the scene you have, depending on the layout that you're working with, staging can be very effective in getting the story across to the viewer so that it's unmistakably clear. And again, this is a whole concept that goes back to watching a live theatrical show. They stage everything so that the story can progress in a fashion that doesn't make the audience feel uncertain or unclear or uneasy or nervous about what's happening. Okay? All right. So thank you for watching this course. We've covered all of these 12 different principles. Again, principles that were established by Disney animators back in the early days of animation. It's important to note that these guys were just revolutionary. They were geniuses. They came up with this stuff as they were creating these incredible, timeless films. And so and these are principles that are still used today, not just in 2D, but also in 3D. So again, I encourage you to check out any books about these early animators and a lot of these concepts that they were coming up with. I think you'll find it very beneficial, even if you're a seasoned animator or someone that's just starting out. So once again, thank you for watching. I've had a lot of fun, and we'll catch you in a future course.